Welcome back to It's About Time as we continue our exploration of what it means to make higher education easier for today's learning. Today we're highlighting an area where the shift to easier is already underway. Technology as an enabler, from AI-driven feedback to new forms of assessment, technology is helping students show what they know in clearer, more meaningful ways. So joining me today is Charlotte Long. He's the president of CBIN and a national leader in helping institutions design learning that truly works for adult students. Charlotte's work is showing how technology can simplify the demonstration of competency, making it easier for learners to move towards proving what they already know how to do and can do. So let's move forward with welcome to It's About Time, Charlotte. And I just want to start with a question about how is it that when we talk about making higher education easier, assessment usually isn't the first thing that comes to people's mind, but it's actually where so much learning friction happens. So how is technology helping us reimagine assessment so students can demonstrate what they know more easily and I think more importantly, more authentically?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, David, thank you so much for having me today. I really do appreciate the opportunity to be with you. You know, that word easier, I know people, and like me, hearing the word, we want to make learning easier. I think we want to make the barriers, the rubs for learners go away, right? And in one of those areas with assessment and technology assessment, it's allowing us to move towards a more authentic performance-based assessment. And that technology is allowing us to scale that more quickly. I mean, just think about our ideal in a competency-based environment is certainly an opportunity where students actually have to show what it is that they can do, right? You look at that competency, think about what that performance looks like, and then design an assessment that's going to be as authentic as possible. Like, what's that going to look like in the real world when that person graduates and needs to do that on the job? So how do we design those tasks? How do we run a live observation? How do we schedule learners for those? How do we capture the evidence? How do I actually norm across raters in case we have multiple faculty teaching the same course? So all of that is a huge, enormous time consumer, right, for faculty. And for learners, often that's all a lot of burden on them to get scheduled and to make these things happen. So really, technology helps us reduce that administrative burden so that we can get to measuring what's really important, and that's the competencies that learners have. So from structured rubrics to consistent scoring to storing that evidence, I think technology is making it easier and really removing some of that friction that we often hear faculty say, I just can't do that. I can't do performance-based. I don't have time for that kind of assessment. Well, actually, you do with some of the technologies that we have available today.
I think that's a great start in this conversation, both on the logistics side in terms of taking the friction out of students' ability to kind of participate in these types of authentic assessments, even down to scheduling and their ability to do it on their own time, and whether it's simulated or in person or video based. Those things are all important, and I think the observation around the feedback that you're getting from a professor or instructor is critical. I've been in higher ed long enough to hear faculty complain forever about the length of time it takes to grade, and the default being then going back to less authentic assessments and multiple choice types of fixed answers rather than the demonstration of what you can know and can do. And I do see that coming forward. What pressure does it put on rubrics and the way that we align these rubrics with learning outcomes? Do we see I see a shift internally here with our faculty spending more time on the front end of that alignment than the back end of giving person-to-person kind of feedback. Can you talk about that a bit?
Yeah, I'd be happy to talk about rubrics. I had an opportunity yesterday to be a guest scorer at a senior presentation. I'm not at a university full-time anymore, so for me it was an honor. And I loved it because the teacher handed me a rubric and said, use this to grade these students you've never seen before. I was on a panel with 5 other reviewers who also have not seen it. And the rubric were yes or no questions. Did they meet my expectations? Well, I don't know. What are your expectations? You didn't lay them out. Did they reference this part? I don't know. What was that part they were supposed to reference, right? That's not a rubric. That's a yes or no questionnaire. But I need something that's performance-based. So those rubrics should describe what does it look like when a student's not yet demonstrating. What does it look like when they're still developing it, but they've not yet met performance standard? What does it look like when they're meeting performance standard? Ideally at CBIN, I like a level beyond what's expected so they see the lifelong learning trajectory. They see where they still have yet to grow once they graduate. But we would do those rubrics in a performance-based way. We would describe what does that performance look like if they're developing but not yet there, or they've met expectations. What is it they're doing? What should I be able to close my eyes and be able to see or hear them doing if I was playing that out in my mind? So I think performance-based rubrics are really important. We still see a lot of faculty who say they have a little more, and they have the mostest, and that's what their rubric looks like. I don't think that's a good rubric at all. Because for a learner, I don't know what a little is, a little more, and the mostest, right? Tell me what that looks like. You actually could listen to the person, get to the bottom of what their conflict was. You could generate alternatives. You could, so if we could describe the behavior, it makes those rubrics come alive. And I would say we have technology that can help us do that in literally a matter of seconds. If you use the right prompt, a generative AI tool can help you at least get a first draft of that you then can use your human intelligence to modify your rubric so it reflects what performance you would expect.
Yeah, we're seeing that in our pilots as well, where the shift is, from faculty indicating I'll know it when I see it, to actually codifying what you see, so that not only can you make it plausible because of the time commitment, but it's more fair. You're judging against a rubric that, and you're training the AI on a rubric that is consistent across everyone that comes before you. And I think there's some eye-opening moments with faculty members who have, they know what they know. And when they see it, but how do you share that across the board to make it a better experience for everyone? And, getting that rhythm on iterations around the rubrics is just getting better and better. And as the rubric gets better, the automation, especially the AI automation with large language models, gets better with it. And I think it's great.
I would just add, sorry to interrupt you there, David. I would just add, it's not just that the rubrics are getting better, our learners can get better, right? When I make it really clear what my expectations are, when I say to a learner, this is the kind of performance I'm looking for, I often think our learners are like puppies. They're like, they want to satisfy us. They want to do what we want of them, right? And so if I will lay out what my expectations are, if I make that clear, a learner can see that and go, oh, okay, I now know what she expects, versus a lot of times we think, let's hide that from them and see if they get there naturally. That's the kind of barrier I think that we talk about. How do we make it easier? How do we get clear with a learner? These are my expectations. It does require all of us as a faculty to become clear on that, right? It's not just what David wants in his class, what I want in my class. It's what we as a faculty think are most important. And then let's collectively set those expectations and then hold our learners to that.
I think that's important, and certainly makes it scalable at that point. And then, so let's shift to the front end.
Yeah,
that's kind of the back end, looking at rubrics and how that assessment piece allows us to more effectively and efficiently give feedback to students and do summative assessments in terms of mastery. But on the front end, the setup is important as well. And we talk about the role of simulations and scenario-based activities. For a portion of my career, I did trying to elicit tasks from children. How do you get them in a situation where they demonstrate what they know and can do, so that you can do everything from research on it to advance the interventions? How does that work? I mean, how do we? Because there's as much creativity on the front end of setting up the assessments, the authentic assessments, as the other. How do you see things emerging and technology dealing with that?
Yeah, I would say over the last 18 months or so, CBEN's been able to train about 2/3 of the colleges of nursing in the United States on the AACN Essentials. And during those trainings, I always say to faculty, because they're like nursing faculty, I don't have time. I don't have time to do all these kinds of assessments. And really, it used to be, it was so time consuming, right? For you to write a simulation, to think about the fact that you've got 100 learners in your class, so you probably need multiple varieties of that simulation. It's all got to measure the same thing, right? All of that took a ton of time. Now, we really have technology that allows us to do that more quickly. So the way we approach this is we just look at that competency, look at the definition, look at the rubrics. What is the performance that you're requiring? So if, let's say, for example, you take conflict management, I was using that just a while ago in one of your answers, but navigating, here's a competency. I can navigate conflict by actively listening, identifying root issues, and facilitating a productive resolution. I hear that a lot as conflict resolution or conflict management. You're not going to multiple choice your way through a hard conversation. They said this. Will you A, say this, B, say this? Like, it doesn't work that way, right? And so instead, what we want to do is create those simulations where they actually have to do that. I want to see them listen. I want to hear them deal with the conflict. I want them to keep asking questions so they're getting to that root cause. And then I want them to try to get 2 or 3 people to all align. But instead of writing that out, I could upload that rubric into an AI, into some sort of a technology, right? I could ask it to generate for me a model that would allow me to see these performances. I could give it some guardrails around what I'm looking for. And then within seconds, you've got some options out there. And I think that's been some of the greatest aha over the last year, is watching faculty go, oh my goodness, I didn't even know I could do this, right? It's not going to be perfect, but you as the expert can take that, make the little modifications you may need to make to that assessment, and now you've got a way of administering it. If you've got money for the technology that could help you score it, you may be able to upload that into a product that allows it to automatically tag every time it picks up on these kinds of answers. Then you're just going in and looking for where those tags are. Is it true? Is it not true? So we're teaching the technology to help supplement the work of faculty, right? Not eliminate the role of faculty, but allow faculty to take their limited amount of time to give the right kind of targeted feedback to the right person at just the right time, right? And our technology is allowing us to be able to do that. So, I mean, these are huge advancements we didn't have even 5 years ago, right?
No, I agree with you wholeheartedly. And, I've used the analogy that we're creating super sophisticated graduate teaching assistants. When we used to teach large-scale courses, you'd have 4 or 5 graduate teaching assistants. They would help you with the grading. You still had control over the class.
Absolutely.
But you had an army of people who were allowing you to scale that, and now we're seeing it being automated, and we're also seeing, I think it's a very positive movement towards more pressure on the assessments and authenticity. And, it also ties into confidence about the rigor of the exercise when you're trying to replace seat time. I mean, we're really good at measuring how long it took somebody to try to learn something. We're not as good at measuring what
Did
they
actually do it.
demonstrate. And so this, when we talk about adoption rates and fear of maintaining rigor, I think it's really important to think about pace and the replacement of seat time units, especially Carnegie units, with competencies that are actually built around authentic assessments. Do you see us actually embracing that, or is it going to continue to be a slow slog? Because the currency is so understandable. Seat time currency is so understandable and so standardized that the new currency is, to be honest, having a harder time getting a foothold than we all thought it would a decade ago.
Well, I think there's, oh boy, that's a big question, right, David? So we might understand seat time, what it is. We might understand what a credit hour is, but there is no trust in that either. I would argue there's no rigor in just that system alone, right? It's up to the faculty, it's up to the school, it's up for the program, whether or not they are going to have evidence-rich demonstrations, right, of the competencies that their learners have. So we may have signals today, but I don't think those signals are all that trusted or reliable, right? And so replacing what, I think there's a number of reasons why direct assessment CBE programs have been a little slower in the uptick. It's work. You would know that. I mean, it takes a lot of work to build the program. You have to pre-think out everything you want that learner to be able to know and do. You have to be able to articulate clearly what your expectations are. You have to pre-write those assessment tools and their rubrics. You've got to design a learning journey that's going to ensure a learner gets there. You've got to think about remediation when they don't get there. How do I go back and give them new learning? I do all of that before I ever enroll a learner, right? And then you think about our own government, which sometimes in both states and federal government who aren't as open to the thought of using assessment and verifiable proof of competence as the currency versus a credit hour, which just tells us how long it took them to sit in class, right? So I think there's plenty of barriers. Those barriers are coming down. I think technology is helping us get those barriers down. We see more and more states moving in this direction. So I think it's going to pick up. It's not gone away. I do think it's going to pick up. What we see certainly through our membership, through our engagement in various webinars or conferences or what have you, this continues to grow. There are still new players still coming in and trying to figure this out. So I think specialized accreditors are helping us a lot in that area of saying, this really is about, can you demonstrate these competencies? Do you really have what you need if you're going to have that credential? So I think there's plenty of pressure out there to help us move towards it. We just got to equip faculty for how to do that.
Yeah, and I also think the other dimension is that, and it's one of the things we've been waiting on, is a mandate from employers for competency-based hiring. Is we talk about competency-based education, but without competency-based hiring that has the next generation of ability to surface learning records, employment records, educational records that are authentic. I mean, we can, as we conduct these assessments, how do we translate those outcomes into a currency that pushes the boundaries on competency-based hiring? And in some ways, it's difficult to look to us to do that as higher education because we're undermining the addiction that we have to Title IV funding, which is Carnegie-based units. So how are we working with employers to make sure, we've heard forever that they're not getting the product that they need to get out of higher education. Part of the answer is in this technology that allows us to demonstrate what people know and can do. How do we think about surfacing that and working hand in glove with employers to move that forward?
Yeah, I think that's the hand in glove was what you just said, David, right? It's not I will build it and they will come. It is a how do we collectively talk with one another about what are your needs? What do you mean by that? Help me define that. What would that look like? Help me understand how far you're wanting that learner to be at the point of graduation, right? How much of that is training you plan to do on site once they've been hired? But what's your expectation coming out of college or with this credential? So I think it's early on being at the table with employer partners, co-designing. UMass Global, Brandman, UMass Global had a history for doing that, for sitting with Walmart and Chipotle and with other businesses and saying, what is it that you need, right? What is it that you're looking for? And how do we connect what we're doing with the skills you are needing and hiring for, right? And so I would say that employer partnership, it really starts with them being at the table from the very beginning. If you've already started a program and you're listening to this, it's not too late. If you haven't, start with skills-aligned assessment. Use assessments to say, employer, come talk to me about how would you verify that a learner that you're thinking about hiring or a candidate of ours that you're thinking about hiring does in fact possess the competencies, because it isn't from the piece of paper, right? There's something else. It's not about I passed biology. It's can they analyze a lab report, right? And make safe recommendations. So how do you check for that? Let those employers help you create at least the scenario that you might use for your skills aligned assessments. But I do think when we do that, employers will gain more confidence in higher ed. We'll see them embrace even more than they already are skills-based hiring. So you talk about competency-based. I think what we hear right now is employers are certainly talking skills-based more than probably competency-based. So I always just say, that's fine, I'll take skills-based, but please remember that's about knowledge, skill, and abilities, and it's about behaviors, not just a skill, right? But we do see them shifting to skills-based.
And I do see that, part of the technology and the innovation is going to facilitate even more movement in that direction is clarity and understanding how we're demonstrating the outcomes of those assessments. And that's what rubs up against grades and Carnegie units and courses, and transcripts. I mean, how does a transcript change to a dynamic transcript, and the pressures on institutions to do something different in that domain so that it meets the needs of employers is pressure that is, creates a fundamental change in the way we think about surfacing and keeping up with these credentials so that businesses and employers can actually easily navigate. It's easier to navigate, they got a degree from X institution and it's in this discipline, so they must be close. And I hope that we're using these new technologies to continue to get better at those portfolios, surfacing those portfolios in ways that HR departments and employers are actually looking at them with a degree of certainty about what they represent.
Yeah. Well, I think that the traditional transcript is evolving for sure, right? And needs to evolve. I would commend ACRO. They have been very forward thinking, I would say at least 10 years, maybe closer to 15 now, on what does the transcript of the future need to look like. We see lots of digital credentials. We're seeing more and more LERs, those learning and employment records. So again, thinking that a learner owns their competency, right? Not their employer, not their institution. They own their competencies. And we want to think in the terms of our transcript as, how do I make that portable? How do I make it transparent? How does that learner come to us? We add our things to their portable record, right? These are the competencies, and I can validate in a way that an employer is going to trust. I can validate this learner has, in fact, this skill. The more I validate by the competency, right, the more trust can come from employers, because they can say, oh yeah, I do see where you can analyze. Oh yes, I do see where you can create a safe recommendation, right? Or, manage that conflict or what have you. So I think there's been great movement. Still more is needed, but great movement in the whole LER space, in trying to give to learners their own professional story. I think assessment certainly does that, because that's the demonstration. That's that reliable, valid piece that we can use to say, yep, that learner's got it.
I think it's right on target. So, we're closing out 2025 and getting ready for the holidays and excited for the next year. What happens in 2030? 5 years from now, what's your both vision and prediction of where we will be around competency-based education, skills-based credentials, and the use of technology to enhance and efficiencies in helping learners surface and demonstrate their skills and knowledge?
Yeah. Well, it's really scary to offer prediction 5 years from now, because if we were 5 years ago in 2020, I'm not sure all of us would be talking AI, right? So a little unnerving. Thanks a lot, David, for the question. I would say I think technology will continue to help employers and faculty. So bring both sides of the work-learn system together to really build a world where talent is recognized, where skills are what unlock opportunity, where competencies and skills are what unlock opportunity, and where people's effort, their ability to demonstrate those skills is what leads to real results. It's not about the degree, it's not about the credential, but it's about the fact that I can show this, right? I think that will help unlock opportunities. From a teaching standpoint, I think the world of personalization is about to just push, right? Where learners are getting content in the way that learner needs. They're getting it at the right time. They're getting the feedback that's almost instantaneous, right? We're meeting learners where they are when they're ready to grow and go, right? So I think we'll see continued evolution of assessments, skill validation, more push to say, I need to validate that skill. I need to know that that learner, in fact, has it. Who can I trust to make that skill validation? I wouldn't be surprised if we don't start thinking more of institutions as skill validators. A big part of our role is that as skill validator. And when people don't have the skill, we're providing the remediation to get them that skill. But I do think our role's going to evolve a bit to that more personalized skill validation, shoring up their weaknesses so they can move to the next opportunity. I don't know. Don't record that and hold that to me, because I don't know 5 years from now what it's going to look like, but that's my guess.
We'll reconvene in 2030 and see how close we are. Fingers crossed, especially on the personalization. I continue to talk about personalization and our ability to better understand students and give them on-demand support. I'm cautiously optimistic that what we've been talking about for a decade is going to transpire over the next 5 years or so.
And you're going to be on the forefront, David. Y'all are on the forefront.
You got to be on the forefront of pushing it and pushing against some legacy models that keep us from moving in these trajectories towards better growth. So I think we're on the same page. There's a lot of good work and exciting work to be done, and to change our institutions for the betterment of our students and our learners. So, Charlotte, thank you so much for helping us see how technology can help us remove some of these barriers. And not just technology. It's actually, designing our systems so that they meet the needs of students and or have so much is at our fingertips. How do we get it at the fingertips of students in a way that actually helps them demonstrate what they know and can do and adds value to the credential? And that's the business we're in, the credentialing business. And as you said, standing behind that credential in a way other than degree completion, I think we're going to see more and more pressure on. So thank you for all the work that you do. It's great to have you on, and we'll stay in touch as we move towards those predictions.
If there's anything we can do at CBEN, let us know.
Thank you very much. As we come to the end of this It's About Time series, One thing is clear: making higher education easier isn't just an idea, it's a responsibility. If we design with learners at the center, we can open doors that have long been closed for far too many.